My fiance proposed but spent proposal night with his ex-girlfriend. I sold his $10 million gallery and moved on. It all started like a dream. Jake, my fiance of 3 years, had finally popped the question. He'd taken me on a surprise trip to Paris, whisking me off to the city of love under the guise of celebrating his gallery's success. So when he got down on one knee under the sparkling Eiffel Tower, with tourists cheering and strangers snapping photos, it felt like everything had fallen into place. But dreams, as I learned, could quickly turn into nightmares. After the proposal, we returned to our luxury hotel to celebrate. The champagne flowed, and Jake's phone buzzed non-stop with congratulatory messages from friends and family. But when he didn't return after an hour, I started to worry. I tried calling him, but his phone went straight to voicemail. The hotel staff hadn't seen him either. By midnight, worry turned to anger. Where the hell was my fiancé? I was about to call the police when he finally stumbled back into the suite at 3 a.m., smelling of perfume that wasn't mine and looking guilty as sin. "What happened?" I demanded, crossing my arms and glaring at him. He stammered, avoiding my gaze. "It's not what you think. I ran into, Olivia. She's in Paris for an art auction and we had some unfinished business to discuss." Olivia, the ex-girlfriend, the one who had left him heartbroken years ago before I came into the picture. My heart sank as realization dawned. "Unfinished business?" I repeated, my voice cold. "At 3 a.m? "It wasn't like that," he insisted, but the guilty look on his face told me otherwise. "We just talked, that's all." I didn't believe him for a second. The man who had just proposed to me had spent the night with his ex. My dream engagement had turned into a waking nightmare. The next morning I left the hotel without a word. I needed space to think, to process what had just happened. Jake called and texted incessantly, but I ignored him. I spent the day wandering through Paris, my engagement ring feeling like a lead weight on my finger. By the time I returned to the hotel, I'd made up my mind. Jake was waiting for me in the suite, looking dishevelled and desperate. He started to apologise, but I cut him off. "We're done," I said firmly, sliding the ring off my finger and placing it on the table. "I can't marry someone who doesn't respect me." He begged and pleaded, but my decision was final. I packed my bags and booked the next flight home. By the time I landed, I'd already blocked his number. In the weeks that followed, I buried myself in work. I was an art curator and had poured my heart into helping Jake build his gallery. It was painful to think about how much of myself I'd invested in his success. But that pain turned into resolve. Legally, I was a co-owner of the gallery. Jake had insisted on adding my name to the business early on, as a show of trust, and now that trust would be his undoing. I hired a lawyer and started the process of selling my share of the gallery. Jake was furious when he found out, accusing me of sabotaging his life. "You can't do this," he said during one heated phone call. "The gallery is everything to me." "And I was supposed to be everything to you," I shot back. "You made your choice, Jake, now I'm making mine." The sale went through faster than I expected. A wealthy investor snapped up my share for a cool $10 million. I'd always known the gallery was valuable, but seeing that number in my bank account felt like vindication. I used part of the money to start my own gallery. Unlike Jake's, which catered to the ultra-rich and exclusive, mine was focused on emerging artists and making art accessible to everyone. I poured my energy into building something meaningful, something that reflected my values. As for Jake, his gallery struggled without my connections and expertise. Word got around about his personal issues, and many of the artists and collectors I'd brought in chose to work with me instead. It wasn't long before he reached out, asking to meet. Out of curiosity, I agreed. We met at a cafe, and he looked like a shadow of the man I'd once loved. His once confident demeanour was gone, replaced by desperation. "I made a mistake," he said, his voice trembling. "I never should have hurt you. Please give me another chance." The scene shifts to the young woman, her expression a mix of sadness and determination as she contemplates his words. I shook my head, feeling a mix of pity and satisfaction. "You didn't just hurt me, Jake. You betrayed me, and there's no coming back from that." He tried to argue, but I'd already made up my mind. I paid for my coffee and left, leaving him sitting there with regret written all over his face. Now, 2 years later, I'm thriving. My gallery has become a hub for up-and-coming artists, and I've built a life I'm proud of. I've even started dating again, though I'm taking things slow. As for Jake, last I heard his gallery went under, and he moved back to his hometown. Maybe he's learned something from all this, or maybe not. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. Breaking off the engagement was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the best decision of my life. Sometimes you have to let go of the dream to find something even better, and I've found my something better.